In this video and the next one, together we're going to build the tour detail page. And along the way, you're going to learn some more cool Pug techniques like conditionals and mix-ins. And as I showed you before, this is what the tour detail page actually looks like. And so that's what we're going to build in this video and the next one. Now the only thing that we're going to leave for a bit later is actually this map. All right, but everything else we're going to build in these two lectures, including these reviews. All right, so right now we have our overview, and we have, of course, these buttons with the URLs already created. But then when we try to access this page, we of course get this error. All right, so let's go back to our VS Code. And I actually want to start this with a small challenge for you. So what I want you to do is to create a route for the detail page according to the URL that we just built before. And it's going to be similar to what we already have here, but you have to tweak it a little bit. Okay? Then after that, I also want you to build this controller, so get tour. Because right now we only have like this placeholder. And so let me actually give you the steps here. And so as always, first, we need to get the data, this time for the requested tour. And for that, keep in mind that we actually need the reviews here and also the tour guides. Okay, so again, let's take a look at that. So we have these tour guides here, right? And so they are a separate data set, basically, so users. And then here we also have the reviews. Now these tour guides here, I believe they're actually automatically populated in a model. So let's take a look at that very quick. So the tour model. And so, so down here, we have this auto-populate whenever there is a find query, but only for the guides. And so don't forget to also populate the reviews. Okay, then after that, we will build the template, but that we will do together. Okay, so I don't need you to do this part. And then finally, I want you to complete this part here as well. So render template using the data from step 1 again. All right, so that's very simple as well. And so what I want you to do is to create the route and then also get the data. Okay, so pause the video here and good luck with that. So I hope you did that. And so let me now solve it here for you. And we're going to start with the route. And now all we actually need to add here is the slug. And of course, we're doing that as a URL parameter. So just like this, calling it slug. So before we used the ID, right? And so we had it like this. And now let's just call it the slug. All right, because again, that is what the overview page looks like. We have tour/slug basically. Okay, and so that's what we will then use to query for the tour in the controller. So let's do that now here. So const tour equal await tour and find one. So this time we cannot use find by ID, well, because we do not know the ID of the tour. And so instead we are searching by the slug. And the slug is, as I hope you know, request.params.slug. All right. And now finally, let's also populate the arrays field. All right. So the path to populate is reviews. And actually, we do not need all the fields here. So let's just specify the ones that we need. And so that is only the review, the rating, and the user. Because remember that we actually display so the username and the user photo. And then of course the review itself and the rating. Okay, then of course it's complaining that we didn't use async. And of course I wasn't gonna forget that. But anyway, it's good that ESLint warns us about this kind of errors, it really takes away a lot of bugs from development. Okay, and then here, of course, we're going to pass that tour variable into our tour template. So that one. So give it a save, no more errors. And so that part is actually now complete. And so all we need to do now is to go ahead and build our template. Okay, so we already should have that here, and that's the dev data. So we have a lot of folders and a lot of data, and it can become a bit confusing at some point. Okay, and so let's get rid of this placeholder content here. And before we do anything else, let's again take a look at the original HTML file, which is in that public folder that I just closed. Let's actually close all of these here, because I find this really confusing. Okay, the models as well. And so now what we need is publics and then tour.html. So the header we already have, of course, and then here goes all the content. So all of these sections that we have in our page are, of course, translated here as HTML. And just like before, I actually already created a Pug template based on all of this HTML code. Right? We wouldn't want to translate this here manually together. Okay? So I have it here already in this template file. But of course, again, if you feel like it, you can pause the video now and translate this on your own as well. All right? But what I'm going to do now is to go ahead and copy all of this code, which is still a ton of code, as you can see. So let's copy all of this and go into our tour and paste that here. Now the indentation is going to be wrong again. So let's copy, or actually select what we just pasted here. And so everything except the first line is incorrect. But all we need to do here is to add one more tab, and that's it. So now they're all inside of this content block, all at the same level. So section, and so basically all of the sections are now at the same level, so they're all siblings. Great, so let's just close up all of these we no longer need. And so just like before, we now have the static page here with all of this static data, which we now will have to go ahead and replace. But before actually doing that, let's just take a look if our route is already working. Okay, so let's reload it, and that gives us the same error. And I guess that's because here we have tours and not tour, as I think we have it in our route. Right, so here we have tour, and that actually is the way it makes sense. And so let's go ahead and change that here in our overview. Okay, and so here we actually want tour, because in fact we're actually only seeing one tour and not multiple tours, right? And so if we go back to the overview now, reload it, and now open up the Forest Hiker, then you see that it's going to be tour. And then, of course, we get the HTML for the page that we just created. Now, for some reason, the CSS is not here. Let's just try to reload this. Well, what's going on here? Let's try to inspect this. And I see we have a couple of errors, so we can click on that. And so the reason for the missing CSS is that it's trying to load the file in the wrong place. So it's trying to load it in the CSS folder inside of tour, but that of course does not exist. And so that is because we're here on this tour route, okay? And so we need to basically fix the way that we import the CSS in our base template. So let's go there. And so here, in fact, we should have another slash, okay? And the same actually here. And so that's for the exact same reason that I explained to you before in the overview down here. So we started this URL as well with a slash. And so again, that is then going to start at the root of the page. And that's the way it's supposed to work. And in fact, the same applies to all of the images here. So all the images should always also start relative to the root URL. So let's add that very quickly here to all of these images. And yeah, that's it. So that's all of them. And so with that, we fixed the overview and also this base file. So if we now reload, we should then get access to the correct CSS. And indeed, here we go. There is just one more error, which is here in this image. And so again, it's because it's trying to load it here from the tour and not from the root URL. And so that problem is here in the header. And so of course, here we also need to make it relative to the root path. Probably the same in the footer. And yeah. All right. Just to quickly confirm that. Yeah, indeed, here we go. Great. So as I mentioned, of course, this now has all the static data about the park camper tour, which is the one that we have in the template, but we are looking at the forest hiker. And so let's now start by fixing our template and basically using the dynamic data right in here. So remember that the variable that we passed in here is called tour, right? So it's simply called tour, and so that's what we have to call it here. So tour.name, and also the same up here. And now you already know that we need to use a template string here, because we in fact want to create a string. So name.tour, and here this path is also not correct. First of all, it needs to be a template string, and then our images are at image/tours/ the name of the cover image. So tour dot, and now I don't remember if it's image cover or cover image. So yeah, image cover. Okay, so let's quickly try that out. And so remember, we're at the forest hiker, and so that should now be the name. And yet another error. So it says here cannot read property tour of undefined. So let's go back and yeah. So here is this stupid mistake. So it's of course tour.name and not name.tour. So what was I thinking there? Let's reload this, and now indeed we get the forest hiker with this real nice cover image in the background. Great, and let's keep moving here. So create yet another template string, tour.duration, and then the number of days. Then down here we have again the start location. So tour.start location.description, remember. All right, now down here we have these overview boxes here. So overview box detail, and as you see, we have 4 equal boxes here, where the only thing that changes is this icon name, then the date, and then next the date. Okay, so here what changes is not the next date. What changes is the description of the box. So next date, difficulty, participants, and rating. All right, and so basically this code here is always the same, only with 3 pieces that change. So the name of the icon, the description, and the value of that description. And so since we don't like repeated code, right, let's use another feature of Pug that we haven't used yet, which is called mixins. So mixins are basically reusable pieces of code that we can pass arguments into. So a bit like a function. And also it's exactly like mixins in Sass. So that's a CSS preprocessor that you might be familiar with. So let's copy this code here for this overview box. So I'm copying it. And now out here, out of this block, let's then create a new mixin. So we write mixin, and then the name of the mixin, which I'm calling overview box. And then a bit like a function, we can specify some arguments. And so remember how we have the description of the box. Then we have the value of that description, and let's just call it text here. And then also the icon name. Okay, so now let's copy that text in here. And of course, this now messes up our formatting. Let's just quickly fix that. And so now these variables here, they really work like all the other variables in Pug. So here, this should now be the text, right? And this here should be the description. So equal description. Well, here it's actually called label in the CSS. So let's call it label here as well. Okay, so label, text, and icon. And so here we also need to change the name of that icon. And all of these icon names always start with icon dash. And so all we really need to replace is this part. So let's create, again, a template string. And then get rid of this. And icon. Okay, and now we can use this. I also wanted to say that we could also have exported this mixin into another file and then included that file here. But I think this doesn't make much sense in this case because it is not really a lot of code. Anyway, let's now actually go ahead and use this mixin. So let me copy just the name of it. And so here, instead of this overview box, and for now let me actually just duplicate it here. Okay, so we use this mixin by writing plus, and then just like a regular function, we pass in the arguments into it. And so our first overview box is next date. Then for now, just the date that is here, so just that I can show you that it works in fact. So August 2021, and then here, calendar. Okay, because that's the name here of the icon. And so now we should get two boxes, so this one and this one, which should look exactly the same. So let's quickly confirm that. And so then we can move on to actually use the mixin properly. And yeah, so here are our two exactly same boxes. Great. So let's get rid of this first one. And of course, then here we want the real date. Okay, and so that is at tour.start dates 0. So let's take a look at that and remember that this is going to look a bit weird, such as it did before. Okay, so let's go ahead and fix that. So let's actually take that from here. And so what we need is basically this instead. Now I don't want to make this line here all too long by simply pasting that here. And so why not just create a new JavaScript variable for that? So remember, we need to use this syntax here in order to create JavaScript code that's not going to produce any output. And then again, we can simply write JavaScript here. Okay, and so now in here I'm going to simply use that date. Great. And now let's just duplicate this here a couple of times for all the boxes that we have. So the first one is for difficulty. And the icon is trending up. Then the next one is for participants with the icon of user. And the last one is rating. And the icon is a star. So here we have the date, but here in the difficulty, we actually have tour.difficulty. Then here for the participants, we want this string, like 10 people. So a template string saying tour.max group size, and then people. And finally, we want the rating and then out of 5. So tour, and I can never remember what I called this field, and it is ratings average. All right, and then out of 5. Okay, and that should be it. Now we can get rid of all this code and this way it looks a lot nicer. And just to make sure that works, let's give it a save here, reload, and indeed, we get easy 25 people and the rating 5 out of 5. Awesome, so we already covered a lot of ground, but let's split this video into two and continue with the rest of the page right in the next one.